Welcome back. Today we will talk about AWS VPC. What is AWS VPC? So what is AWS VPC? AWS VPC, which is short for AWS Virtual Private Cloud, it's a service that lets you launch AWS resources in a logical isolated virtual network that you define. It provides a range of networking features like subnets, route tables, network gateways, and security settings. A VPC is an essential component of AWS networking, allowing you to control the virtual networking environment for your AWS resources. So let's talk about the key features in the VPC and why we needed to use with Lambda. So in terms of the key features, one, I want to say it's a network isolation and security. Whenever we talk about VPC, the first thing that comes to my mind, the network isolation and the security. A VPC provides a private isolated section of the AWS cloud where you can launch resources in virtual network you define. This isolation enhances security and control. Number two, subnets. So you divide your VPC into subnets, which can be public or private, to control the network architecture and the IP address range. Three, we have route tables. Control traffic flow within the outside, within and outside your VPC using route tables. And also we want to talk about the internet gateways. So attach an internet gateway to your VPC to allow communication between resources in your VPC and the internet. Also, we will talk about the security groups and the network ACLS. So establish security connection between your VPC and your on-premise premises network using VPC or AWS Direct Connect. Let's talk about why we use this one with Lambda. What the benefits that comes from using a VPC with Lambda. So number one, I could say it's access. You can access private resources. So if your Lambda function needs to interact with resources that are inside the VPC, like a private Amazon RDS database or Elastic Cache cluster, you need to configure your Lambda function to run inside the VPC. Also enhance security. So running a Lambda function in a VPC adds an extra layer of security. You can control access to and from the Lambda function using VPC security features like security groups and networks ACLs. We have number three, network isolation. For use cases that requires a high degree of isolation, running Lambda function in a VPC ensures that you operate in a controlled and isolated network environment. Lastly, we have the compliance requirement. So a center compliance standards or organizational policies might require that your compute resources including Lambda functions running within a VPC. We want to talk about some consideration when it comes to using a VPC. The first one, we want to go about the cold start. So initially, Lambda functions in a VPC experience longer cold start times due to the setup of the ENI, its Elastic Network Interface. However, AWS has made a significant improvement in this area, but you should also put this in configuration. We want to talk about the VPC VPC configuration. You should ensure that your VPC is correctly configured within the necessary subnets and security groups of your Lambda function. 3, we have the IP addressing. Lambda functions running in a VPC use the VPC's IP address range. Ensure that you have sufficient IP addresses available in your subnets. Lastly, we'll talk about the network connectivity. So if your Lambda function needs to access the internet, you should ensure your VPC has an internet gateway and your Lambda function is configured within a route to the internet. So in conclusion, using AWS VPC within Lambda functions provide enhanced security and network capabilities, allowing you to build robust and compliant serverless application within a controlled networking environment. So that's it for this video, and I hope you like my content. If you like my content, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you'll never miss a video, and see you in future problems.